Richard Mullins, MD of Middle East and Africa at Acceleration. Welcome to the Red Zone.
Hi, Serena. It's good to be here.
Richard, please will you give us a short and brief history of Acceleration and the main services that you offer to clients?
Cool. So Acceleration started about 12 years ago. We started as a media buying and planning business, and we've kind of morphed since then. We now basically a marketing technology solutions business. So we have a consulting division, we have a services division, and then we also sell technology to different marketers and customers around the world. We started in South Africa, and we're now a global company of about 160 people.
Now, you say that Acceleration architects digital marketing and publisher solutions. Can you tell me a bit more about this and what sets you apart from other companies?
We're not a traditional agency, so we don't do creative. We don't do any creative development or anything like that. What we do is we look at the marketing technology that clients use and how people are engaging with the different platforms. So be it social, be it mobile, be it through the digital platforms, be it YouTube. And really what it comes down to is understanding how people are engaging with you at the different touch points. And then how do you use that knowledge to develop a better brand interaction and ultimately drive what we're here to do, which is to create sales.
Now, data, and big data for that matter, has become a real integral part of any marketer's ammunition. But some are getting it wrong and some are getting it right. Can you suss that out for us?
Yeah, I think data's been around for a long time. I think the difference being is that with SaaS kind of technology styles and the development of the cloud, data has now become far more accessible. And I think the big challenge is to understand which data is actually valuable and what you should be using to make decisions, as opposed to just having all sorts of data available to you. And I think that's quite a daunting prospect for most clients, because they don't really have a grasp about the volume of data that's available to them. And when they realize that, they don't really understand how to unpack that data to be able to use to engage at deeper levels. And really what we do is we sit down with clients and take them through a process to understand what is the data that they have right now, what is the data that they're missing, how can they capture that data, and then how do they use that data to make better informed decisions around their business that will actually drive a return on investment and better engagement with customers.
Now, business and marketing, for that matter, is all about customer acquisition and retention. How does Acceleration use data for their clients to ensure that this happens on an ongoing basis?
Sure. So I think the two are actually intertwined, because one is to understand how people are finding you and what it is that they're looking for and how you're relevant to them. So it becomes an extension of your broader business kind of engagement from a sales perspective. What is the content? How does that content deliver to a conversion? And what are the people that are converting and who are they and how do they convert? Once you've got somebody that's converted, the real key is to then understand how do you upsell them, how do you cross-sell them, how do you keep them as a client? And more importantly, how do you make them advocates of your brand? And I think so many people kind of really differentiate between retention and acquisition, whereas it is a continual process of both all the time. And developing things like contact strategies, developing life cycle strategies around how people are engaging, understanding how people move from different processes in your product life cycle and how they develop that knowledge is something that marketers really need to get to grips with. And different people, different segments have different requirements. And often what we do to simplify our marketing, we kind of create kind of simplified versions of what those segments look like. I think with digital, we can become a lot more engaged with those different consumers and deliver a much deeper understanding from a content delivery and engagement perspective.
Do you have any real life examples of where this works?
We have a client that we've been working with for about 8 years now. And it started off on a very simple level. We were just acquiring customers for them. They ended up getting a whole lot of customers. And they kind of came back to us and said, well, okay, so we've got all these people. What do we do now? And at that stage, we moved into email and analytics as a business. So we actually then started using the emails to start driving that engagement. And what's happening now is that people don't really understand that email is a key driver, not only from an acquisition perspective, from a retention, but from an acquisition perspective. And what you can do is you can use social media links, you can use it to refer friends and that sort of thing. So they've actually taken their business from being purely an acquisition kind of driven process to more than doubling their user base purely through the use of understanding their customers, understanding their broader player and who their friends and engagements were, and how to provide them with opportunities to go back to those people and engage with them. And I think those kind of businesses are the ones that we really want to get involved with. It's not purely about you as the customer. You have friends, that's why Facebook's so popular. So how do you get to engage with you and become a recommendation from yourself to that person's friends, to a broader strategy? And if you get that right, that becomes an incredibly powerful mechanism. And I think those are things that often marketers kind of get wrong. They don't see their broader messaging and their broader engagement as being a touch point kind of strategy. How do I use social media combined with email, combined with my sales process? It kind of tends to be, I have a social media strategy, and I have an email strategy, and I have a display strategy, and we're not using and understanding how people are integrating between the two. Another example, a very simple one, is we had a client where we integrated the data understanding between their display advertising and their search advertising. And what we realized is that search was actually driving a lot of the display awareness. And display was actually driving the awareness of the brand. So when people went into the search campaign, they actually recognized the brand and they were more likely to click. So by increasing a 10% increase on the display side, we actually got a 30% better conversion on the search, which ultimately is where the client was delivering returns and conversions and that sort of thing. Most people ignore display, but to their detriment.
So how do you understand the customer's journey to conversion using every single platform that we have out there to play with?
So I think the key thing is to understand the technology platforms that you have in play. And often kind of what's happened in the internet, if you think about a couple of years ago, people weren't really engaging with Google, or 5 years ago, Facebook was really, really small. Now suddenly it's this behemoth. And I think that the key is to understand how the different tracking technologies and the different technologies that you're using to push out creative and content and that are actually being used to integrate to one central view of a customer. And what's happening is that because we've developed in silos, all these technologies have developed in silos on a broader base. Really what you've got to do is look at them and say, how do you incorporate all that tracking into one central view of a customer? And that starts to give you a very clear kind of understanding of how a customer progresses through a journey. On a very simple level, you may decide you want to go away for a weekend. So let's say somebody in Joburg wants to travel to Cape Town. First of all, he'll probably email a whole lot of friends and go, looking to go away, do you guys want to join us? Yes. Then you would probably go onto a search site and Google places to stay in Cape Town. Then you would go into those sites, see what's available. You would then email back into your friends to say that's available. When you email back through a Gmail picks up that you've actually looking for accommodation in Cape Town. If you look at the search terms down the side of the bar, they'll actually give you other options for you to investigate and look at. Now, if you're a marketer, you should be tracking all of those touch points and seeing how you can influence them to the nth degree to ensure you get a conversion. And often what we're doing is that as much as what we collect in data, so are our competitors. And that becomes a really interesting space at the moment because marketers aren't aware that media owners and other competitors are out there tracking their same users and targeting with the same messages. And understanding the consumer journey points and where you can engage with them is absolutely key to being able to influence that decision in the long run. So data consolidation is really a key focus for us.
Richard Mullins, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Serena.